how do you get your executive presence going in a meeting?
Step 1, do your homework. You have to wait for the right moment where somebody's finished and you say, great idea, I want to build on that. Step 2, very cool, calm, control. As a senior person, you're in the driver's seat. And thirdly, of course, do speak up and contribute because visibility increases opportunity. You have to exude leadership, right? People are looking at you for direction. Online presence is very important. We e-meet people before we meet them. In professional services, we have to talk a lot with our clients, but very often we talk too much. Manage your online presence. Put your name into Google and Google Images and see what shows up. In fact, introverts make better listeners. They build more engaging long-term relationships. Even if you don't open your mouth and you just enter a room in a meeting, you can quickly identify who's the most powerful person in the room. And thirdly, of course, do speak up and contribute because visibility increases opportunity.
Hello everybody. Today we delve into a subject that is not just about professional success, but a true art form, executive presence. It is that magnetic quality that you see in leaders, the kind that commands attention and inspires. It is a great career accelerator and a trait that PR and comms professionals like us seek in leaders we aim to position. To guide us on the journey of developing this executive presence, I have two exceptional experts here with me. First is Shital Kakkar Mehra. She is India's leading executive presence coach and an authority in business etiquette and cross-cultural expertise. With over 2 decades of experience, she has personally trained over 100,000 professionals across Asia, including numerous CEOs. She is the author of not one, but 3 essential books: Business Etiquette, Business Netiquette, and most recently, Executive Presence, the Poise Formula for Leadership. So, who better than her to unravel this topic? Welcome to the show, Shital.
My pleasure. Thank you.
My second guest is Lulu Raghavan. She is a VP APAC for Landor and Fitch, a global brand consulting firm. She has been here for over 2 decades, is a brand transformation expert. Lulu's conviction is that your personal brand is a real superpower, the key to getting noticed, considered and hired. With a decorated career including being part of the Cannes Lion Design Jury in 2018 and most recently Campaign India's Women Leading Change Award winner for 2023, she is an authority on personal branding. Thanks, Lulu, for joining me today.
I'm excited to be on your show, Nandini. Thank you.
If you are liking Comms and Conversations, do subscribe to my YouTube channel, the link to which is in the description. With that, let's get started. So, Lulu, let's start with you and let's start with the brass tacks. What does it mean to be a senior person in an organization today?
Great question, Nandini. You know, as a senior person, you're in the driver's seat. The buck stops with you. You're responsible, along with the others, for the organization's growth and success. So what does that mean? It means that you have to exude leadership, right? People are looking at you for direction. You have to exude that experience that you bring to the table because people are trusting you to solve problems for them, right? You have to exude that expertise. People know that you have that technical know-how. You have to be the one who's networking. You're representing the company internally as well as externally. You're the one who's making those calls, the key decisions, right? You're accountable. How do you ensure that people understand that you are going to take responsibility for your actions? And then you're also responsible for nurturing talent.
Yeah.
But the most important thing, Nandini, is this intangible asset that you have to have, which is called executive presence.
Shital, you are somebody who's actually written a book on exactly this subject, which is executive presence. What, according to you, qualifies as executive presence?
You know, while coaching senior leaders, I heard 3 sentences very frequently. One was, he's technically brilliant, intellectually superior, works very hard, but something lacks gravitas.
Ah.
The second frequently heard one was, we really want to promote her, but the board feels that she lacks presence. And the third, which is the worst one, was, who is he? Yeah, I've heard of him. He does great work. Zero visibility. So that started my research. And I would say executive presence it is linked to your business results. That is the foundation of your corporate career. But it is about how you project yourself as a leader. It's a lot to do with perception. It's an intangible. In fact, Nandini, during my research, I asked people how would they define it. And the interesting bit was that they were calling it things like it factor, X factor. I think it was too much of television that they had watched, but they couldn't define it. Yeah. So clearly it's easy to spot, but tough to define. So I had to demystify it in my book.
Yeah. No, I'm sure it takes a lot, not just to demystify, but for people to actually embed it in themselves. It's not easy, it's easier said than done. But Lulu, coming to you, today we live in a digital environment. How do you think the concept of executive presence evolves with that?
I think it's critical, Nandini, to go from the cubicle to the corner office if that's your journey. Executive presence is so key. And digital today is very critical because you have the zero moment of truth. What is that zero moment of truth? When someone hears your name, Shital Kakkar, the first thing I do is I Google search. And then I get this footprint of Shital's, digital journey. There might be a few things that she's said on LinkedIn. I might see some images. I might see a video of her. My net impression of her in that zero moment of truth is what defines Shital in my mind. And, she bombs it and she doesn't have good executive presence digitally, then that's a lost opportunity. And what do I mean by good digital presence? Comes across as very professional, is making comments that have a certain depth, is sharing content that's valuable, is coming across as a very seasoned professional who you want to know and who you want to affiliate with. So very, very critical. It's both a disadvantage and an advantage. It's a disadvantage if you haven't cared to manage your presence and to design it. And it's a huge advantage for those who know how to leverage all of these platforms to project a certain persona. Projection is important, but Nandini and Shital, I think you'll agree with me. It can't be only about projection. It also has to be delivered. When somebody meets you, they shouldn't have this massive disconnect about how they perceive you online and how you are in person. But digital extremely important to develop your executive presence because that actually precedes you. People have already formed an impression.
And I would just add probably one point to that one is perception, one is learning, building, but it has to be genuine also at the end of the day. Otherwise, you cannot really sustain it. But to the sustaining part, I mean, we've talked about now, here and now. What would you suggest as a long-term perspective?
For me, I think you can be very intentional about building your executive presence. And as Shital said earlier, it is intangible and we can draw from the concepts of branding, which is why this whole notion of personal brand has become very, very critical. Actually, it was in a 1987 Fast Company article that Tom Peters first said that you are the CEO of You Incorporated. You're the CEO of your own company, your own brand. I think it's very critical. Personal branding gives us a long-term approach for defining what you stand for, the value that you bring, and the tools to actually package that value and communicate it to all the stakeholders in your ecosystem.
Shital, coming to you, how do you make out that somebody really has scope for improving their personal brands? I mean, top 2, 3, 4 things you think one should be looking out for, or when one sees, one can realize this needs improvement.
One, of course, yes, online presence is very important. We e-meet people before we meet them. Yeah. The decision to hire, promote, and here is an interesting fact, even marry has been taken on what people have seen of each other online. So clearly it's very, very important. Yeah. Right? So yes, manage your online presence, put your name into Google and Google Images and see what shows up. This is what the world is seeing. And based on that, it should inspire trust, especially in the services industry where people buy an experience. The second, of course, which is very critical, is that physical presence matters. The first few seconds are critical. We do form opinions of people. Somebody walks in through the door. We have already passed multiple judgments. Psychologists, of course, call it fancy word called thin slicing. But we have passed judgment on their economic strata, which part of the geography they are from, are they looking successful, are they looking confident? So I think first impressions, it may be the tip of the iceberg, but it matters because that's the only part of the iceberg that is visible. And finally, I would say it's important to even build your network. So that is important. And looking at leaders I have trained in the last couple of decades, I would say, these are the three critical areas to start the journey or the blueprint.
Yeah. But Lulu, back to you. What do you, let's say, see in somebody and say, this person has some scope of improving the personal brand? What would be those 2-3 things which are like a flag?
I think one very obvious one is just lack of self-awareness. Inability to read the room. Sometimes you're in presentations and somebody is just droning on and on. Nobody's looking up. Everybody's on their phone. There's no interest. Now, why would you not pause or do something different? Change the energy. No, people are just going on and on mechanically with the slides, right? So that, for me, is one big sign of, this person's not just picking up on the cue. Secondly, in professional services, we have to talk a lot with our clients, but very often we talk too much. And that diminishes the authority and gravitas that you bring to the table. So being verbose, not having clarity in your thought is another sign of lack of executive presence. And then the third one, even if you don't open your mouth and you just enter a room in a meeting, you can quickly identify who's the most powerful person in the room. It's a radiance, a confidence, and a very interesting form of power that they exude. On the other hand, the lack of it, you can see some leaders who are meant to be leaders, but they've diminished themselves. A lot of women do this, unfortunately. Rather than expanding your presence, and I don't mean speaking loudly or standing up, I'm just saying everybody's sitting. But there's a way to command, which sometimes even talented, powerful people don't do. So when you see somebody diminishing themselves, and this is worsened when they open their mouth and they say, oh, my point may not be valid, or I don't know if my idea is good, but let me say it anyway. Again, you're undermining yourself. So these are just some. I wish somebody when I was younger had constantly told me some of these things that I would have also learned earlier. So I now take it upon myself to help people, even though they may not like it. It's something I wish I had learned earlier. So I'm always looking, identifying opportunities, but communicating it in a very positive way to say, here's the impact that you could have because you have the substance. You just now need to, as Shital said earlier, technical competence is not the problem. It's that je ne sais quoi. It's that X factor that you have to develop, which is actually quite hard.
It is totally, I can agree with that. But Shital, again, back to you. You tell me 2 signs which you see in people and you say, some way to go.
Communication. I think it's very important to communicate effectively. And I agree with Lulu completely. People are too verbose. When you speak too many words, you take away from your executive presence. Secondly, I think people don't listen. They just don't listen. They want to give others an instant download on all their achievements and everything that they have done, but they are just not listening. And in a services industry, in a professional services industry, your client would love to believe that they are unique and their problem is unique. So at least sit down and listen to them. So yes, that is important. I think communication and listening, according to me, if these 2 are taken care of, pretty much a lot is achieved. But yes, ignorance is bliss. So most people are not even aware.
Yeah, I hope after today's discussion we would have scratched the surface to some extent. But Lulu, coming to you, and our audience are the PR and comms professionals. What is the role you feel that we could play in actually helping our leaders build their executive presence?
It's exactly what we've been talking about today, Nandini. The role that you can play is communicating how important their online presence is, their visibility is, and then I think a lot of them are very busy, probably don't have the time to build their personal brand, but I think you need to stress how important it is, because as we talked earlier, Shital made this point very clearly that there is a very strong link between the personal brand of the leaders of the organization and the organization's success.
I'll probably just add one more to that, look at the pillars that you want your leaders to really stand for, which need to be aligned with what they actually believe in so that it is again genuine. And then whatever is being communicated willy-nilly should fall under those pillars, so that you are actually building it on a very focused direction, and so that you can see the kind of strides that you've been able to make. But let us, Shital, Lulu, move on to the next section, which is the rapid fire, and there are certain questions I have, and we'll have quick responses to that. So Shital, coming to you first. Let's say you are in a meeting, or somebody is in a meeting and you are not being heard. We spoke about the fact that you are droning on and you're talking and you're not being heard. That is one. But what else would you suggest other than, okay, be careful on what you are talking and decrease a bit? How do you get your executive presence going in a meeting?
Step 1, do your homework. Step 2, very cool, calm, control. Definitely pause the conversation and say I have something to add, or if I may step in at this stage. And thirdly, of course, do speak up and contribute, because visibility increases opportunity. That's for sure.
Lulu, you want to add something on being in a meeting and how do you get noticed?
I think it's hard if you are not a pushy person, because everyone's talking. You have to wait for the right moment where somebody's finished and you say, great idea, I want to build on that. It's almost looking for those opportunities before anybody opens their mouth. You have to be smart about it. And maybe you're not aggressive, but you can be smart about when to get into the conversation. That's one thing I would say. And then also I would say, I would reinforce what Shital said. When you get the stage, just pause. I think just calming everything down, speaking with clarity, speaking very calmly can be quite reassuring, and people are actually then lenient to listen to you.
So just another thought, and maybe I should have asked this earlier actually, that when you are in a meeting or that inability to say no, what is the impact on the executive presence and how do you go about it?
That's a really hard one. I think we all struggle with it, and it takes work and practice to be able to say no, because none of us like to do it, especially if it's a boss, it's a senior person, it's a more powerful person. So maybe rather than saying no, if you're feeling uncomfortable, you can just validate what you've heard, or confirm your understanding of what the ask has been, and say, I just want to confirm you're asking me to do another project, you just want to confirm that you want me to speak at this conference or whatever. Let me have a think about it. Can I get back to you in an hour? Can I get back to you in, you don't want to say no immediately. Just say that you will consider it, and then you could do a cold email or whatever it is to say no. But I think you can diffuse the tension in the moment by saying, thank you, appreciate this opportunity. Let me have a think. I'll get back to you.
Most media relations executives are very good at that. We know how to sidestep and not get it having to say no.
But to learn that, right? Because we're so excited that we just got another opportunity or asked to do something else, and we just want to take it on.
But Shital, coming to you, any misconceptions that you have encountered when it comes to executive presence?
The first one is that you have to be an extrovert to have executive presence. I think that's not true at all. In fact, 93% of people surveyed by Harvard University have ranked themselves somewhere on the shyness spectrum, from mildly shy to very shy.
Okay.
So if you're shy, you're in a huge majority. So I think that's one thing that we need to de-link. In fact, introverts make better listeners. They build more engaging long-term relationships, and they convey a lot more confidence in terms of their presence. So I think if you're an introvert, celebrate, and you can exude a ton of executive presence. Secondly, you don't have to be on social media all the time. A couple of relevant posts are more important than constantly posting.
Quality.
Thirdly, I would say, another myth is that networking is work. People focus on the word work out of networking. I don't think networking is work. It is important to build your network.
Broaden the net.
To connect with people. Yeah, and networking is like banking. Don't enter a network to see what you can get from it. Instead, see what you can contribute. It's like banking. First, you need to have a credit balance before they will allow you to withdraw. So I always tell people, build your credit balance when it comes to networks, internal as well as external.
And Lulu, building on that, do you think there is an age element to building this networking or building your executive presence?
I don't think that executive presence is for senior executives only. Actually, I would say that from the minute you enter the workplace, your first job, you should be aware that there is such a thing, and your goal is to develop that so that you can be effective and have opportunities for growth. So no, Nandini, I think you have to start as soon as possible. These days it's starting even in high school. Our kids are going to Model United Nations, representing their school in so many forums, and so many forms of executive presence, which is about communication, ability to command a presence, influence others. All of that is starting at a much earlier age now. So just continue developing that and you'll just get better and better.
Yeah. Any tools the two of you would like to suggest to people for helping on this front?
Yes, I would say there are lots of books. Make investments in yourself. Brands need investments. Companies understand that completely. So when it comes to individual branding, I always tell people, make investments in yourself. And that could be an online course, it could be a book, it could be an audio book, whatever it is. So any knowledge resource. I feel you should have role models and you should monitor and watch them and learn from them and have mentors from whom you can learn. So that's another set of people who can definitely help you with your executive presence. And thirdly, I think it's very important to have a mindset shift also. In the book, I've drawn a parallel that climbing the corporate ladder is like climbing Mount Everest. The skills which are needed to get you to the base camp are very different from the skills which are needed to get you to the summit. To the base camp, of course, you require maybe fitness, but to the summit, you require mountain climbing, rock climbing, experience, resilience. Similarly, in the corporate world, technical skills, intellectual skills, and hard work can get you to the corporate base camp. But after that, to gain a competitive edge, you need to build focus and have a blueprint for your executive career.
That's actually a nice one. When you're at the base camp, when you're starting your corporate ladder, you are there. But now to get further up, you have a lot of investment to be done. But give me specifically, say, one or two books, both of you, and your book, we have already spoken about it. I said that in the introduction. Tell me some other book or some other course.
Universities overseas are offering short-term courses as well. So there's Berkeley that offers a course. There's Cornell that offers a 5-day course on executive presence. And I'm sure there are tons of others. In fact, online learning has become really cheap in today's world. And sitting in your room, you can learn.
In terms of tools, Nandini, I would say self-work is the most important, right? Because it's all about building that self-awareness. So number one is journaling. I'm a huge fan of journaling. So at the end of the day, really reflecting on the day that was and how your meetings went, what you can learn, what you can do differently. I think you can reflect and learn by yourself. Second, I would say feedback is the breakfast of champions. Constantly seek feedback. You don't have to wait for performance appraisal or 360. After a meeting, the senior most person, you can go and say, hey, how was that meeting? Is there anything that I did terribly wrong? Anything that I did well that I should continue to do? So I think that's the second one. And the third one, I agree with Shital, mentoring. because a mentor who has more experience can truly guide you and help you navigate the way. But going back to what Shital said, the mindset of constantly learning is important. Learn by watching, learn by doing, learn from feedback. If you have that mindset, you're going to go places.
I think that's great. Thank you for sharing some of these books, the names of books. But as you said, learn by following. Give me the name of one person you feel has fantastic executive presence in the corporate world.
I think it's Indra Nui. I've always been a fangirl. I used to read about her journey. I've read her book. But I was very lucky last year to be in the same Zoom room with her. She spoke to about 500 women of Leap Club, which is a private women's network. And she talked to us for an hour about grooming yourselves, careers, all of the things that we've been talking about today. And Nandini, what really struck me was how much clarity she had in her thoughts, the pace at which she responded, and how she was listening and picking up cues. Very difficult to do online, but you just had to watch her to feel that awe that you would have just reading about her. Just conducted herself in a supremely professional way. So the content was there, but the style of delivery and the way in which she managed the questions and overall kept the energy, kept smiling, was super impressive.
Yeah, and Shital, a name from you?
It's interesting. Indra Nui, definitely. We had interviewed her last year online for my NGO Catalyst, and we were 750 women in the room. And I can tell you one thing, I agree with Lulu, her aura, the way she paused, the way she spoke, every word was beautifully, presented. So yes, definitely. And I have met Mr. Tata, Ratan Tata. I would say he definitely has tremendous executive presence. The way he speaks, so I would say ABC, appearance, behavior, communication, his humility, the way he speaks, the way his kindness, it all just comes through. So yes, these two definitely have an aura around them, and it's mesmerizing.
I'm glad you brought in diversity and brought a man's name. Otherwise, it would have been 2 women, 3 women here and putting another woman. So we're saying yes, equally balanced. Thank you very much. Thanks, Lulu. Thanks, Shital, for joining me today and for this lovely conversation.
Thank you so much. Absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. So fun to do this chat. Thank you, Nandini.
Well, today we have just scratched the surface of a profound and transformative topic, executive presence. I'm sure you will appreciate that the world is a stage and how one performs on it, the impressions one makes, whether consciously or subconsciously, truly matter. And the journey towards us begins with introspection. And today, Shital and Lulu have shared some thoughts. I hope you will be inspired to embark on this journey to make a mark as a great leader. Do share in the comments, whom do you feel has a great executive presence? With that, all the best. Thanks for joining me today.